Portions of our programming are brought to you by our good friends at Provident Credit Union. With 21 Bay Area locations to serve you and your banking needs, visit providencecu.org. Now back to Rob Black and Your Money with your host, Rob Black, on the Bay Area's business leader, AM 1220 KDOW.
Creating wealth isn't easy. It takes an approach, and you have to understand earning money in your 20s is part of that foundation. Earning more money in your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s. Investing money starting in your 20s is important. Start with that 401k, that 403b is a great way to do it at 3%, 4%, 5%, and then growing it to 15%. So you can earn, you can invest, you can look at buying stocks, bonds, real estate. You can go after playing cards and bubblegum packs. You can go after digital currencies, but also real estate. Real estate was probably the most intimidating to me in my 20s because it's a liability. It's not an asset. Like stocks, you own 100 shares of Microsoft, you own 100 shares. Real estate starts as a liability that grows into becoming an asset if you are patient with it. But you have to borrow money. That's the liability. That's where Mr. Mortgage Man Scott Thompson comes in. You can find him at mrmortgageman.com. It's MR Mortgage, MORTGAGE, man.com, all slammed together. No spaces, no underscores, just mrmortgageman.com. Scott, let's talk about some of the recent trends that we've seen in mortgage rates. It feels like the clouds may be breaking, the storm may be passing, that we were in that higher interest rate period brought on by the Federal Reserve. Now they're expected to lower interest rates come September, maybe in December as well. We'll learn more about that in the coming days, but it seems like it's happening. How have the mortgage rates affected home buyers and buyers these days?
Well, it's definitely been falling, probably never as fast as people would hope, but it definitely reaching the lowest levels that it's been in like the last 2 months. Economy's slowing, inflation's been improving, and I think that directionally those rates are going where home buyers are hoping.
So let's talk about lower rates, lower mortgage rates. And again, I think people could afford a mortgage payment. They don't really care what the rate is. They don't really care how much the home costs. They do, but ultimately they're like, I can pay $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month. Let's talk about mortgage rates, lower mortgage rates. Why has home buying demand decreased recently?
It's been a little interesting. Despite the lower mortgage rates, demand for home buying has hit a 6-month low. And really that just suggests that buyers are hesitant. They're on the fence. They're still waiting for decreased rates even further. It could be the feeling that home prices are too high, or could be economic uncertainty. Again, inflation, recession, job market uncertainty. Still, inventory for homes is small. So there's a lot of things going on that there's just been a decrease in home buying, even though interest rates have been getting lower.
So I think we've seen the top of the mountain in mortgage rates for this cycle, and we're starting to slide ever so slowly down. Like you mentioned, it is slow. Has the reduction in mortgage rates influenced refinancing activities yet? Like, is there signs of life in refinancing if there isn't many signs of life yet in new home purchases?
Definitely. Home buyers or homeowners have been, especially homeowners that bought their home in the last 2 years, and they were sitting on an interest rate above 7%. They're definitely taking advantage of the lower rate and financing their mortgage. People are any chance they can to lower their monthly mortgage payments are taking advantage of that. And so, big uptick in refinances.
People want to call you. They can call you, or they can find you online at mrmortgageman.com. Refinancing at this point in time should be considered if you locked in recently. The rates have dropped. So if you've bought in the last 2 to 3 years, you probably have some wiggle room on the way down. I'm going to be giving out his phone number in just a minute. Since it's a podcast as well as our radio cast, you could always backspace 15 seconds and catch the phone number. What are some of the broader implications of current market trends on the housing market and the economic outlook, in your opinion, Scott?
I think overall housing market remains cautious. Many buyers are waiting for potential better conditions. I already mentioned economic uncertainty, and that's just the world we live in. But I think those that purchase that have higher interest rates are really starting to look to refinance. And in the game of mortgages, you want to be as close to what the market is and pay the least amount of interest to a lender you can. And so you may refinance multiple times as the rates continue to go down. So there's a lot of opportunity for people out there.
I still plan to buy a property in the next 12 to 24 months. I'm not sure the exact timing, but I will use Scott Thompson, Mr. Mortgage Man. He will show me the differences between a 7% mortgage, a 6.5%, and a 6%. We will talk about the options. If you're a current homeowner with an interest rate above 7%, you should contact him with some refinancing. There's a big difference between 7.5% mortgages to 6.5% payments. And the payment, what I could do is talk you into putting that extra savings into your 401k, your 403b, or an alternative account to save a little bit more money for retirement. Thanks very much, Scott Thompson. I will open a cold, frosty one to start the weekend a little bit early because that was a good segment. You can find Scott, Mr. Mortgage Man, at mrmortgagman.com. It's MRMORTGAGE man.com. His phone number, 408-216-7286. That's 408-216-7286. You can find him at mrmortgageman.com. And again, it's come. It's time. It's happening. Mortgage rates have hit their high for this cycle. How low will they go? Not as low as you think, but they're definitely going lower as the Fed starts their campaign of lowering interest rates. If they go as low as you want them to, there's something really bad with the economy. And we don't really want that. Maybe we do. I don't know. But the low mortgage rates or the low 10-year treasury is what we're paying attention to and how the Fed moves that. We've hit our high. The high is in my opinion. I'm not exactly Babe Ruth pointing for the fence when I say that. You can find Scott at mrmortgageman.com. Let's take a look at the markets today and see what we're seeing. Ongoing momentum is fueling some recent gains. There's a below average volume right now. There's a very light participation. Kids on the East Coast go back to school in the coming weeks, most of them in September. So East Coasters are getting their last vacations in of the year. A lot of West Coast schools have already started. I'm back to work for sure, off of vacation mode. Strength today in financials, real estate, and energy. Taking a look at the stock market, we are in a mode of waiting for the Fed. That's not exactly great news. There is the Jackson Hole Symposium, economic symposium that starts today with the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell expected to give a speech tomorrow. We're seeing markets slightly lower. Now, again, let's keep some perspective. If the markets were to close higher today, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ would be up 10 out of 11 sessions. I think a lot of what the Fed has to say should already be built into the short-term market movement. So maybe the Fed speech tomorrow won't be as much as you think as it could be. The labor market is leveling off. Labor market revisions hit workers the hardest in certain segments of the economy. There was a new downward revision, basically an annual benchmark revision for the last 12 months. And we saw unemployment rise to 4.3%. But because there was a big revision, we've seen more people kind of unemployed. Wednesday's revisions took 0.5% off the estimated size of the workforce as of March. The industries hurt the most: business services, financial activities, and information. So those industries broadly capture jobs that can be described as tech, finance, sending emails, taking Zoom calls, hit the hardest. I know taking Zoom calls is one of the job areas that we now classify as a job. Peloton shares are rising 15%. They have a turnaround plan that's taking hold. Their losses shrink. I'm not a turnaround kind of guy. And the only thing I can give you an example on, to put it in parlance that you and I can both agree with, is boats. This is not a unicycle or a bicycle that's easy to turn around, but companies sometimes can be brutal to turn around. Not like the Titanic. I'm not saying that. I'm not calling the Peloton stock a Titanic. And for the record, it wasn't a cold frosty one. It was a kombucha. So it's a tea drink. And that's what I opened just a couple minutes ago. In order to lose weight before I take GLPs, I will take GLPs if I can't keep the weight off through the end of the year. I've lost 30 pounds roughly. I've gotten to a healthy weight, which is nice. I've cut alcohol. So I'm not going to do a cold frosty one on a Thursday morning celebrating the weekend. I know some of you were thinking that. So Peloton shares, I don't like turnarounds. Do you? When I broke up with girlfriends in the past, it was over. There was no getting back together. As Taylor would say, we were never, ever, never getting back together. Same thing with a stock. If Peloton broke my heart once, and it didn't, I never owned it. But if it broke my heart once, I don't go back to it. July home sales broke a 4-month losing streak as supply rises nearly 20% year over year. I think housing's in for a movement. With lower interest rates coming, 27% of all homes now are paid in cash. I think that number is right. 27%. Whoa. Got to have cash or you're going to have financing. Financing should get easier with lower interest rates. Check out Scott at MrMortgageman.com. That's MrMortgageman.com. I'm Rob Black.
The blind leading the blind.